Hello, James and Ruth. How are you both?
Very good, thank you.
So it's the final season of his Dark Materials. What were your favourite moments playing Lord Asriel and Mrs. Coulter?
Quite a few. Had quite a good few moments in this. I loved in the sign language in the first scene. I'd never done that before, so that was really amazing. I loved working with James. We had some great scenes. It was sad to say goodbye to Monkey. They were my sort of top moments.
I really got to explore Asriel and who he is and what he's all about and what his challenges are in the scenes with Ruth. And getting to work with an actor of her caliber to do that made those scenes better and made the exploration of what's going on with him even deeper and greater. So that was amazing. And then weirdly, Asriel's got to do a kind of rousing speech to the troops just before we go into battle. And it was all about freedom. And much like Henry V and William Wallace's Braveheart speech, they've kind of all been said before. So it was an interesting challenge and a fun challenge to try and make it unique and make it your own. And then ultimately just giving up to the fact that it's always going to just sound like those two speeches. So that was
Shakespeare. Damn Shakespeare.
Damn you, Shakespeare.
Ruined it for everyone. Yeah.
What were the most challenging moments playing your parts for both of you now that you've completed all 3 seasons? And is there anything you would have done differently?
Ooh. Say that again. So before, was there anything we would have done differently? What was the most challenging thing?
Yeah, what were the most challenging moments for both of you playing your parts? And is there anything you would have done differently now that you've completed all 3 seasons?
Oh, okay.
I found quite a challenge this season. I found it quite challenging that she becomes vaguely good. I actually found that quite difficult to play. Or maybe it was slightly less, not less interesting, but just her intentions were clearer in a way, and so it was more straight. But I don't think there's anything I'd change. Maybe a bit more time with Asriel, because actually I would have loved to explore their backstory a bit more, or at least have a conversation about it. It felt like it's such an interesting part of their relationship and what happened that we never explored that in the 3 seasons, and I would have quite liked to sort of have had a scene about that.
Did you ever read the original season 2 episode that they wrote for Asriel?
Was that the no, I didn't actually know.
It was me and you meeting in Oxford. And I said to them, so who's going to play Asriel and who's going to play Coulter? And they went, you two. And I went, I'm 42 years old. I'm not playing an 18-year-old student.
I was like, that's fine. Just got to put a big light here, press the button. We can only shoot this up in like loads of lights.
I was like, are you guys mental? Biggest challenge, something I would have done differently. The only thing I would have done differently, and it was, I understand why they didn't include it in the books. There's all this chat about Asriel, about how time bends around him and time works differently around him. And through his strength of will, he's almost got slightly metaphysical powers that he's not in control of, just things happen differently around him. And that would have been interesting to show, simply because I think it would have fed his ego even more, so that when everybody's saying, no, your daughter is the person who's going to basically win the revolution for us, and he's going, no, but I'm like a warrior, adventurer, inventor, wizard. I am the guy. And I think that would have helped feed his ego. But to be honest with you, his ego's so big it probably doesn't need fed. But that would have been an interesting thing to play with.
Absolutely. Ruth, I like that you mentioned that you liked the sign language you were doing, and that was memorable to you. So that was actually going to be one of my questions. Is that something you learned specifically for this project, or was that something you were already able to do before you worked on his Dark Materials?
Actually, I'd done a play called Constellations where one of the scenes in that was in sign language, so I'd learned it again like 5 years ago. I'd done that scene, but to be honest, actors learn things and they learn it for a project and then it disappears the moment you finish. I couldn't do it now, so I sort of learned it specifically for then. But I loved it, and I got actually a sign name. You get sign names, and this one's for me, it's like Ruth, because my top lip's quite, like that. But that's my sign name, Ruth. It's like a wiggly top lip. But you all get a name, and you've got sort of designated a name. It might be like sort of Belinda with the long lashes, or it's kind of cool. But I love doing it. I thought they felt it was. I've said this before today, but they felt like it was a really interesting sort of exercise, because I felt like I was more focused and listening more than I ever usually do. Even though there's no words being said, you were sort of really engaged in this amazing focus with this girl. It felt like everything else disappeared. You're in a little bubble in your own little world, and it felt really quite profound. So I love doing it. It felt quite special.
And James, this is not the first huge fantasy world you've been a part of as an actor. I have really fond memories of seeing you as Mr. Tumnus in Narnia. So is the fantasy genre something you gravitate towards as an actor? And would you like to continue with more fantasy roles after his Dark Materials?
Yes and yes. It's a very simple question. Yes and yes. I love fantasy. I love science fiction. I've loved them since I was a wee boy, and I continue to love them. I think sometimes they can be just a kind of pacifying whatever piece of candy floss, and sometimes it can be really profound, and this is in the latter category. I like both, by the way, and I don't know, I think Ruth was saying something earlier in the junket about you're sort of liberated from contextual mundanity, and you can talk about things that you can't talk about when it's set in an environment that we recognize and understand and come into with preconceived notions of what the information in that context means. Put something on a spaceship and we can suddenly talk about destiny or faith in a different way that isn't tied down with what we feel about, I don't know, whatever politics there are in the air at the moment. Do you know what I mean? They kind of sometimes get in the way of what it is that the writer's trying to say or talk about, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's why I love fantasy. And I just think it's just really cool to create new worlds and be a part of that. So yes and yes.
Would you ever want to create your own world, a fantasy world, as a writer in that kind of context?
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever had that itch. And I am somebody who's listened to and read a hell of a lot of fantasy and sci-fi and incredible worlds, but I don't think so. The one big idea I had already got done. So I was like, oh shit, okay. I'm good. I'm done. After that, I'm out.
So Lin-Manuel Miranda was one of your cast members and he created the musical Hamilton. Would you both ever consider performing in a musical version of his Dark Materials?
I'd love to know what Mrs. Coulter's songs were like. I mean, quite fun. As long as I could do sort of character voice singing, I'd be really happy to do that, which I would as Mrs. Coulter, which means sort of like not ingenue singing, my voice might not be able to do that. I'd be up for that.
Yeah.
If Lin-Manuel was writing it.
As long as I get to just be in the beginning and the end.
You go to the pub in between.
Yeah. He's really slurring his words towards the finale.
You probably need to go to the pub to get the songs out, I'd probably need to do that every night.
What I love about his Dark Materials is that humans have animal demons that are a reflection of self and personify the human soul. If both of you could choose an animal to represent your soul in reality, what animal would you choose and why?
Okay, I'm going to pick Ruth for her.
Yeah, please. Yeah, do. Yes, that's a good idea.
Something tells me.
Oh,
I think you'd be a fox, and I think it's because they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck. Yeah, he's got it right. He's absolutely nailed it. That's exactly what I would be. And you've not heard me say it 50,000 times. Yes, a little urban fox, a little scraggly little urban fox that sort of survives throughout life. I have one who lives near me, and I like it. So I'll pick an urban fox.
Ruth knows mine. Go on, Ruth, hit it.
It's an otter.
Which kind?
A water one.
Which kind of water?
Can't remember. I was listening.
A big body of water?
A big-bodied otter.
A big-bodied otter.
It lies in the water and holds hands with another
otter. They hold hands when they go to sleep. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, is there any message you'd both like to share with your fans in particular about this final season of His Dark Materials?
Hey, fan.
Hey, one fan.
Hey, what up, fan?
Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian.
Any messages, Ruth?
I just think have fun, enjoy it. This is like the culmination of 3 seasons. It's everyone goes on massive journeys. We complete everything. It's wild, it's wonderful, it's sad, it's emotional. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
For me, the BBC and the HBO have a website. If you could leave a review mentioning my name personally, 5 stars would be appreciated. It really does make a difference. But no pressure. Thanks very much for your custom. We realise you can go to the other networks.
And just add Ruth Wilson onto that as well. It'd be great. Thanks.
Thank you so much, both of you. It's been such a joy to speak with you.
Thank you. Cheers.
For having us.